Welcome everybody. Today is gonna be fun because I have a new product here I want to unveil to you. This is the new Fireball table rental system. Now this has been something I've been really thinking about. You guys have come to me several times and said, Jason, I really would like to get into your table system, but it's a little too spendy. And you know what? I kind of agree with that. This is a big gamble, especially for something that you can't try out. So what we want to do is come up with a table that can be shipped to your door, try out for 30 days or so, try out all the tooling, see which fixtures work for you, and see if it makes an improvement to your workflow and speeds up your production and makes you guys more money. It sits on its own pallet. It's easy to put back together again, so you can ship it to the next guy when you're done with it. It comes with toolboxes full of tooling. Everything that you could possibly want and imagine is inside these toolboxes. And overall, I just think it looks cool. And also we've made it real easy to set up and calibrate really fast. At the end of that contract, you guys can make a decision. No, this table's not for me, or yes, please send me a table. And with these fixtures. So this table is that, our brand new rental table. And as far as I know, Fireball's the only one providing a rental table service. I think this gives you the opportunity to explore what you've been missing out on. So let me walk you through how it all works and how we built it. For the Fireball rented table, we know we want a few features for this table to be convenient. We want open pockets for forklifts and pallet jacks, retractable wheel jacks for adjusting the table height, and a place to store our tools and fixtures. Finally, we also want shipping legs along with rubber blocks to protect the table from damage during transit. Now that we have our design features locked in place, it's time to take this design and build out a few of these tables. So with that in mind, let's get started. The first thing to get going is the shipping legs, which looks like this, the letter H. So to get started, the first thing we need to do is building a little C shape. Each of these are the legs, and this is the spreader bar. I'm gonna walk you through what every clamp is doing, because I think this is the most interesting part about fixtures. This is the reference surface that we used to weld this knife plate in position. So everything's referenced off of this end. And that's what this fixture is doing, is setting this side and this side exactly the same. This clamp is pushing sideways into this block right here, which is set the width. This clamp is pushing down on the tube, keeping it smashed down to the table. These fence blocks over here are setting the distance apart from one end to the other. This clamp is pushing back into this fixture and forward into this block, keeping everything pushed up. These blocks are keeping things perpendicular because we're using the holes, so there's no squaring involved. This clamp is pushing downwards and back. This one's putting pressure directly down. This one's also pushing down and back into this block. As you can see, it's nice and tight. And then it's the same on this side. It's a mirror image on the left and the right. We're aiming for 48.5, which would normally be on this line right here, but we're gonna set the tooth block back 1/16 of an inch, which is gonna push it this way. And we're gonna be able to do the identical thing on the other side. So when we're done welding right here in this corner and it's all cooled down, this whole thing should just kind of tip in, should be right on the money. We have 8 of these to do. I know this looks like a lot of work holding and it's a lot of wasted time, but it's really not. The only other place we can mess up is if we get the leg in the wrong place. So we just have to watch out for that. It's a total time saver. And then we're ready to weld and we're on to the next setup. Let's take a look and see how she did with that new adjustment. Let's pull a measurement here. I'm gonna pull it this way so you guys can see. Oh yeah, much better. It's right on the money.
Now that the fixed legs are welded out, it's time to build the main frame. We'll add fork pockets here so it's easy to lift and move. This will also act as the backbone of the table and give us the structure we need.
These forklift pockets have been prepped. There's tapped holes in here already that's been laid out. It is critical that we get these in the right spot because things are gonna get bolted to these. And let me walk you through the fixturing, how we're gonna do this. So our fixture table's a little short, so we've added some tower blocks here on the end to give ourselves a little more room. 2 tubes running parallel to each other with stops, orientating them square, parallel, and elevation. And they're gonna be resting on top of these 1, 2, 3 blocks. Then we're gonna be working on the cross tubes, and they sit on these little pads and reference up against these stops right here. This sets an endo. And by doing this, everything's gonna be square and parallel. Theoretically, there should be nothing in the way to just lift it up out of this table with the forklift, and then we do the next one. Spend a little time up front is gonna save a lot of time on every part. So let's talk about this. Where do you weld? Because this is the framework and our legs and everything attached to this, if we have a lot of warp in this stuff, it's gonna be bad down the line. So if I were to weld here, This probably wouldn't move too much, but this end will. It's gonna wanna pick this tube up like that and fold up those edges. No matter how many clamps we put on it, yeah, it'll stay, but as soon as we take the clamps off, it'll just fold up. So I'm trying to be diligent on where we weld. And this is what frustrates me about engineers. They'll call out something ridiculous like weld all the way around, and you're like, really? How am I gonna keep it straight? So this is where knowing how to fabricate is important when designing stuff. Can I get by with a couple little stitch welds right here? Probably, and be fine and not warp this thing all up. Anybody who has seen fork pockets before has seen that this gets bowed as people use the fork and they start to curl it. Puts a lot of downward force on this 1/4 inch plate. So while we have it in the fixture, we're gonna be adding these strengthening plates right here to the bottom, and it's gonna give this bottom lip an extra reinforcement, and we'll just weld it on the sides. That way this is gonna be super strong and I never have to worry about this tube ever deforming. So this is the new combination square. It's 3 inches wide. And why is it 3 inches wide? For building stuff just like this. As you can see, I want to double check square between here and here. We have a radius there and a radius there. That means we need at least 1 inch to get down onto the flats. Right? This is over 1 inch from the surface of this blade to the edge. So that allows me to check for square. It allows me to lift the square body up and get onto the edge and clear that roll and this roll. And as you can see, we're right on the money. So that's why a 3 inch wide combination square is mandatory if you're doing this fabrication stuff. We put some clamps and tacks on it, and then we pull it out and get the next one going. We're gonna be driving this forklift into this piece of tube steel, and we're gonna be lifting it out of the fixture. One thing I've noticed with running a fixture table is pushback. So what is the likelihood that this thing isn't gonna shift, bump, or move any of our fixtures if there's this slot in here? The fireball fixtures are mechanically locked to the table in all directions. These cannot pivot, these cannot push back mechanically because we have a 2-bolt pin system. This style does not have a mechanical connection to prevent twist or pushback. All it's dealing with is friction. The worst thing that could possibly happen, the fixtures shift or move without you knowing, then you go to place the next parts in the fixture and they're off. And then you go to weld them out and then they find out later that they're wrong. So this is the solution that I came up with the tooth block that really prevents this from happening. Oh, oh. See exactly what I was talking about. Did it move since we bumped into it? Nope, stayed in the exact same spot. Did you guys see that? It moved the whole entire table, but the fixture didn't move. That's what you want, the mechanical locking pins. To help speed things up and go faster, we've pulled this weldment off, and I'm gonna finish welding it out over here, while Wyatt takes care of the next one and getting that one all fixtured up and tacked into place. And we're just gonna flip-flop to really help speed up the process.
Now with our 2 sub-assemblies welded, it's time to bring them together. This step is critical because everything on the table bolts to this, so the alignment has to be spot on.
We got our fork pockets all fabbed together, and now for the next fixture setup, we need to make this table super wide. So we're gonna be using these big tower blocks added onto the side of the table to extend the surface. Now these things are heavy. I think these things weigh about 600 pounds. They are beefy, beefy. There's no way 2 people can lift these things. So the problem with this thing is that you kind of need to be in 2 places at once. You need to be in the forklift to get the right elevation, and you're trying to line this pin up through this hole and into the table. So we're gonna put a fixture on the left, we're gonna put a fixture on the right. This is just basically gonna be a hook. We're gonna make sure that our faces are really clean because they're gonna marry together. We don't want any grit in between the tables. And it's gonna sit right on top of the table surfaces. So we start high and drop it down in position. There we go. Now we can put the bolt in. One of the reasons why I like the 3/4 table system is because we can use regular bolts to combine stuff like this. But the other table companies, they use a weird size hole, 28 millimeter. Where are we gonna get a 28 millimeter bolt? I don't have any of those. I don't think I've ever seen one, but they're not very common. Regular bolts are cheap. They're only like $1. A 28 millimeter bolt like this one from my competitors, this thing's 55, 75, 80 bucks, depending on what manufacturer you get it from. That's expensive just to bolt stuff together like what we're doing. So in this condition, this is pretty simple, but if we wanted to turn it perpendicular, we can, because we have a provision on the bottom for a dragon wagon leg, and that can give it full support. That way it can help you tune it in level, because it's gonna be extended out here a long ways, but these are pretty special.
Now that we've extended the table surface, the next step is to join the H-frame with the pallet frame and attach the leg pads, which tie everything into the table. Since we're building this frame for a Fireball tabletop, and the one we're working on already has the legs attached, we're flipping everything upside down so we can line it up from the bottom when it's ready. But this is not as simple as it sounds. Each leg pad has 4 bolt holes, and there are 6 leg locations, which means 24 bolt holes all need to line up perfectly underneath to the table. If even one bolt hole is off, we won't be able to connect the table frame and the tabletop properly, so we have to be very careful with this fixture setup. Let's get to it. The top of the 14-inch tower block is going to hold the forklift pocket frame. Whew, a little tricky. We have a constraint here and here. This is what squares our whole forklift tube up. And then, of course, everything is sitting on top of these tower blocks. That sets the elevation. Our leg pads are down here located with the fence blocks. So we have a 3-point system here, down at the bottom, and at the bottom of this other leg. And because that's already welded out, we know that this thing can't move. And then we can come down here and tack our flange, because our flanges are correct. So no matter whatever these legs do, we're okay. I guess the idea behind this is if we would have welded this leg flange to this tube earlier, we'd really have to be worried about this tube being in the right location. But the way we have it set up right now is gonna be perfect. We have 3/8 of an inch on either side of the toolbox, so we have a little flexibility, but we wanna try to get as close as possible. So here we've left ourselves a little shelf to put a fillet weld in there, and that's what's gonna hold this to this tube. So this tower and this fixture is setting square off the face of this tube. So we bump our forklift tubes into this, and this sets parallelism with the table. But I understand this looks overly complicated, but it's really not. It's actually fairly simple. Wyatt and I have just finished up fabricating all the frames, and now they're ready for a powder coat. I'd like to powder coat them because I want them to hold up really well. Yeah, we're gonna go with the classic Fireball red for these tables. It should look pretty nice. Now that the frames are back and all powder coated, we can start installing everything, like the table jacks and casters, toolboxes that sit underneath, and of course we got to decal them all up to make them look cool, and of course our 102 by 54 platen, and it looks like it fits perfectly. Boy guys, this whole table system turned out so good. I am very pleased, and I'm so excited to see it in your workshop. I think you guys are gonna be pretty impressed with it too. When I started this project, this was supposed to be just a very standard shipping crate, but I think we went above and beyond, and I really like the way it's turned out. So welcome to your Fireball fixture table. Let me walk you through all its features and how it works. Let's start with getting it off the truck. We've included these fork pockets on all 4 sides, the long side and the short side. So you can get some forks underneath here and pick it up. If you need to drag it off the back of the truck, we have some D-rings right here that you can yank on. This prevents you from grabbing onto the table and pulling onto it in some weird places. This is the shipping leg. This takes all the abuse from bouncing down the road. This is what's gonna be sitting on the floor of the truck. After you got it unloaded, you guys have done the hardest part, getting it onto your shop floor. First thing you're gonna wanna do is strip the bumpers off. And inside this cabinet is gonna be a screwdriver that looks like this. It's a hex key, and you're gonna see these holes right here. They're gonna be hiding these ball bolts. And these are the same fasteners that the tables use, so take them all off around the table. There should be approximately 2 to 3 per bumper. And here's what the back side looks like. It's a piece of flat bar, and these correspond to the table holes. And remember, do not take the hex bolts loose. That's what holds the bar to the bumper. So then remove all bumpers, set them aside. Step number 2, roll up the cover, set it aside. You're gonna use this later, so don't throw it away. This is how we're gonna put it back when you ship it. It's at this time you're gonna need to inspect the table. Look for any major scratches, take some photos, and document it. This way, when the next guy receives the table when you're done with it, you can say that some of this damage was already there. Next step, we need to get the table up to the appropriate elevation and get it at a normal working height. So as the table sits on the shipping legs, we are currently sitting at 33 inches. We're gonna get it close to 35, and I'll show you how to level it. These casters are called total lock casters, which means there's a brake that prevents it from rolling, and there's a lock that keeps it from pivoting. As they come shipped, they're gonna be locked from pivoting, kind of nested underneath here. So you're gonna wanna push the lever down to unlock it, like that.
Then roll the caster out of the way a little bit. Our leg jack right here is bolt on, which means we can remove it at any point in time, replace it, service it, do whatever needs to happen, because obviously things like this get damaged in shipping and in typical use. So we need to make it serviceable. So look at these bolts right here. These allow you to skip a bolt if you want even extra height. You want this table to sit really tall. You have some adjustment right there too. So to take out any weird movement in this telescopic tube right here, we added this locking bolt. Included with the table is going to be this jack handle. And it goes right on the knob right there like this. And now we can crank it up to our desired elevation. So not only is this going to raise the table up to get it to appropriate working height, but it's also going to level the table. So this is how fast you can do this. Okay, let me show you. You want to make sure that these locks are loose. And I just want to get it close. Remember, we're lifting the whole table up with this jack, about 4,500 pounds. So you can see this table is so rigid that it's floating in the air. Now, I don't recommend putting an impact on here because you'll wreck the jack. I have the table roughed in at 35 inches. Boy, that was pretty fast. That's way better than trying to adjust the casters underneath, because this is the typical wheel caster. You gotta get on your knees, you gotta turn this shaft and thread it up to elevation, and then jump a whole bunch of pegs to get the right number you want. So this is a much faster, more convenient design. Now from here, I'm just gonna level it. So we leave one side stationary, we don't touch one leg, we just work three, and that will dial us in forward and aft. That looks pretty good, that looks pretty good. Man, this is so much nicer than being on your knees. Within a matter of minutes, you're up to elevation and leveled out. Resist the urge to make the table this tall, because it's gonna be hard to reach the center. I know it might feel comfortable when you're up close, but it's gonna feel really awkward when you're in here in the middle. And once you get up to elevation, you can lock these legs. This just takes a little bit of the wiggle waggle out of it. You can move the table wherever you want now that it's on wheels. Helps if you have extra help, because this table's heavy. All right, now we're ready to work. Now all the tooling is shipped inside these stationary cabinets, and we've provided you with a plethora of fixtures. Everything you're gonna need is gonna be in here. Everything from fence blocks, tooth blocks, risers, dozens and dozens of clamps, pins, stops, tooth washers, side push clamps. The entire Fireball catalog is practically gonna be in this drawer for you to test, try out, and use. And then as far as the handle goes, we just like to store it inside this box. Save it for next time. So what you're gonna probably wanna do is there's gonna be tools you're gonna use a lot of. So what I would do is get them out of the drawer, because you don't wanna be opening these drawers all the time. And I would get them over here under this little side storage. You're gonna be using clamps very often, and they're designed so that all the pinned versions, they'll stay elevated, so it's easy to pick them up. Any other accessories that you're using a lot of, they can be stored over here. Other tools like the hex drivers and scraper that are included, you can store them here. And I would load it up. Your pliers, stuff you're gonna grab all the time. You're gonna be using lots of fence blocks. So they have a home here too. So the fence blocks are cool because you can stack them on top of each other, but arrange the tooling you're gonna use the most on the sides, because this way you can just reach down here, grab a clamp, pull it out, use it on the table. On one side, you have all your smaller fixtures, and then inside here, we've included the tower blocks. So the tower blocks are much heavier, and if you're gonna be using them often, I would probably get them out of the drawer and set them off onto a cart, but you don't really wanna be lifting these in and out of the drawer every time you use them. So now what do we do when we wanna ship it back? First thing we wanna do is lower the table back down again. Okay. Like I said before, we like to turn the wheels and lock them so they're inboard. Before the table gets shipped to the next person, I recommend cleaning the tabletop. Just use some WD-40, lightly mist it, get rid of any of that yucky oil. Just from typical fabrication, gets rid of any of the dust from grinding. Give it a nice wipe down so the next guy has a nice clean surface to work from. He'll thank you. And we're working with the honor system here. When this table leaves your workshop and heads to the next one, when that workshop opens up the table, he's gonna be judging how clean of a job you did, and then he will note it back to us. That's the way the system's gonna work. If you've noticed a lot of grit, grime that's gotten in the holes, we've included a brush with the table. Just give them a good wipe down to remove any of that yuckum that gets in there. And that way that when the next guy gets it, he's got a nice clean surface to work from. Then it's ready for the top. What I've discovered in shipping these tables all over the country is that the shipping company will often leave them outside and the rain gets on them, which is bad. So what we've provided is this rubber cover right here. This provides you guys with an easy solution to get it ready for shipping. Once you guys get the top rolled out and on, it's now time to put the bumpers. Now these are forklift stops, which means forklifts in the shipping department world are going to be slamming up against their crates. And this is what I came up with to help prevent this table from getting damaged. Anything we put on this here, like wood or anything, probably is not going to stand up over time. It's a car bumper with a piece of flat bar on it with corresponding holes that match the table. And we can use the tacking bolts to simply fasten them to the sides, just like this. And they're easy installation, no crate building at all. Easy peasy, make your way around the table, bolting these bumpers on. There we go. Now the forklift can slam into this all he wants. So a couple neat things. You notice right now we can't move it, but if you have a pallet jack, the pallet jack still fits underneath the table, so you can move it around. I don't think you're gonna be able to do this in the back of a truck, but it's there as an option. Sweet. Watch your toes. Boom. Okay, let's talk about lifting this thing. So this forklift that I'm gonna try to pick this table up with is a 5,000-pound forklift, and I have 5-foot forks. We're gonna see if this forklift can curl it from the end. We're sitting really close to 4,500 pounds of weight. I'm gonna bend my forks. So as you can see, this forklift doesn't have enough cojones to pick the whole table up from the end and curl it. So you're either gonna have to have 2 forklifts or pick it up from the side, or a bigger forklift to pick it up from the end. But in its current configuration, we'll make sure all the tools are loaded up, we'll slap a sticker on it, and it's ready to be shipped. If you guys have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you at the Fireball Forum. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.